Hi students, this video is going to discuss the differences between the preterite and the imperfect tense. Keep in mind, both of these tenses are past tenses in Spanish, and they don't actually exist in the English language. So this is a challenging topic, so I need you to make sure that you are following along, you're listening to what I say, you're writing down the important concepts, and you're also writing down any questions that come up as you're listening. That way we can address them in class. So let's get started by reviewing a little bit of the preterite tense. So there are a lot of irregulars in the preterite tense. We also have AR verbs and then ER/IR verbs, which have different endings. So AR verbs in the preterite tense, the verbs that are regular, have these endings. Haste, o, amos, hastes, and ado. ER/IR verbs have the same endings as each other, but the endings are different from AR verbs. So ER/IR verbs that are regular end with I, iste, yo, imos, istes, and ieron. Now we have some irregulars. We have our U-step verbs, which are irregular. We have slipper verbs, if you remember those. And then we have ir, ser, ver, dar, and hacer, which are completely irregular. If you would like an extra credit opportunity and you would like to do a little bit of practice, please ask me in class about how you can get some extra credit by memorizing some of the irregular preterites. So to remember when we use the preterite, because remember this video is on when we use the preterite versus when we use the imperfect, so there are two acronyms that can help us. We have S.A.F.E and COBE. I will tell you what both of the acronyms stand for, but I tend to use COBE more. I think it's a little bit more descriptive and easier to remember, so that's the one I'm going to focus on. So we'll start with S.A.F.E. The S in S.A.F.E stands for specific instance or a series of specific instances. So this is like an order of events or an exact number of things that have happened, or anything that really has a time frame. A stands for action that interrupts ongoing events. F stands for a focus on the beginning or the ending of an action. And then the E stands for an enclosed amount of time. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this acronym because I don't tend to use it as much, but if you would like to use this and would like me to give you a couple of examples, please let me know in class. So I tend to use COBE. I feel that it's a little bit easier to remember and a little bit more descriptive. So the C in COBE stands for a completed action. The O stands for ordered events. B, the beginning of an action. I, an interrupting action. And E, the end of an action. So again, they both stand for the same thing, S.A.F.E and COBE. We're going to use the preterite in the same instances. It's just whether you can remember S.A.F.E or COBE better, which acronym works for you. So let's break this one down a little bit more. So the C in COBE stand for completed actions. So this is something that is done and over with in the past. So for example, mi amiga salió de la fiesta. My friend left the party. So in the past tense, I know everything has been completed because it is the past, but if you can be talking about something ongoing in the past tense, but if something is just done and over with, like your friend left the party, that is a completed action. Same thing with the next example. Yo comí una hamburguesa el viernes. I ate a hamburger on Friday. So that it's completed, it's done and over, I already ate the hamburger. The O stands for ordered actions or a sequence of events. So this is when you have like a first, second, then, finally, that sort of thing. So, for example, el lunes primero fui a la tienda. Entonces compré comida para la cena y por fin fui a la casa de mi madre. So on Monday, first I went to the store, then I bought food, and finally I went to my mom's house. So this is a series of events. So it's first, then, and then finally. The B stands for the beginning of an action. So if you remember, to begin or to start are the verbs empezar and comenzar. So definitely whenever you use those verbs, you're going to be using the preterite tense. So for example, la clase empezó a la 1 de la tarde. The class started at 1 in the afternoon. Or yo empecé a estudiar a las 9 anoche. I started to study at 9 o'clock last night. So this again kind of ties in with a completed action because if you started to study, you have already started, so that is completed as well. I stands for interrupting action. So yo hablaba por teléfono cuando mi madre me llamó. So I was talking on the phone when my mom called me. My mom calling me interrupts me talking on the phone. So that's why it is an interrupting action. It interrupts something else. And then E stands for end of an action. So, la cita terminó a las 10:30. So again, terminar means to end. So whenever we use that verb, we're definitely going to use the preterite. So, la cita terminó a las 10:30. The appointment ended at 10:30. All right, so on to the imperfect. So we'll start with a quick review of the imperfect before we get into the ways that or the times that we will use the imperfect tense. So remember, our AR verbs end with aba, abas, aba, abamos, with an accent, abais, and aban. And then ER-IR verbs end in ia, ias, ia, iamos, iais, and ian. And all forms here have an accent mark. And then remember, there are only 3 irregulars, ir, ser, and ver. To go, to be, and to see. So ir is iba, ibas, iba, ibamos, and iban. Ser is era, eras, era, éramos, and eran. And ver, veía, veías, veía, veíamos, and veían. So just like the preterite, there are 2 acronyms that we can use to help remember when to use the imperfect. We have W.A.T.E.R.S and Dr. LEWAIT. I tend to use W.A.T.E.R.S more often, so that's the one that I will focus on, but I will tell you what both acronyms stand for. So, Dr. LEWAIT. The D in Dr. LEWAIT stands for a description. The R stands for a recurring action. L for location. E for emotion. W for weather. A for age. I for an interrupted action, which is different than an interrupting action, so keep that in mind. And then T for time. Again, I don't use that one as much, so I'm not going to focus on that. What I'm going to focus on is W.A.T.E.R.S. So the W in W.A.T.E.R.S stands for weather. A stands for age. T for time. E for emotion. R for repetition. And S for setting or description. So, the W, weather. We use hacer with weather most of the time. So, for example, hacía frío, it was cold. But again, sometimes we don't. So we could just say llovía, it was raining. And again, these would both be imperfect. When we talk about age, we use the imperfect. So we always use tener with age. So cuando yo tenía 14 años, when I was 14, it's always going to be in the imperfect. Time. We use ser with time, and so whenever we have a time in the past tense, we're going to use the imperfect. And remember, ser is irregular in the imperfect tense. So eran las 11 de la noche. It was 11 at night. Now remember, with time, we'll only ever use the bottom 2 forms, so it will always be either era or eran. E stands for emotion. So if you're having some sort of emotion in the past tense, then you're going to use the imperfect. Estaba muy emocionada cuando vi a mi esposo. I was excited when I saw my husband. Estaba triste al final de la película. I was sad at the end of the movie. Now also with emotions, we generally use the verb estar, so we're going to use estar in the imperfect tense. So a recurring action. So a lot of key phrases will indicate to us that we're going to use the imperfect tense. So like many times, every summer, every winter, all the time, every day. So things like that. So refer to the back side of your notes page if you would like to see some of the key words or phrases that you're going to have for the imperfect tense. And you also have a list of keywords or phrases for the preterite tense. So an example, todos los veranos, every summer, mi familia y yo íbamos de vacaciones. So every summer, which makes it recurring, my family and I went on vacation. Another example, muchas veces mis amigos hablaban vía mensaje de texto. So many times, again, that makes it recurring, my friends used to talk via text message. The S stands for setting or description. So, el sol brillaba y la vista era muy bonita. So the sun was shining and the view was very pretty. That is a description. And then again, another description, la casa era grande, the house was big. So those are descriptions of something in the past tense. We're going to use the imperfect. So that's all I have for you for today. So make sure that you did take notes, that you write down any questions. We're going to focus in class on when we're going to use the preterite imperfect, some keywords and phrases that help indicate that for us. And then again, we're going to always try to remember those acronyms.